Hey friends, Wes here checking in. Welcome to What's My Scene, Gainesville, Florida, my hometown. Gainesville is a sleepy southern college town located in the north central part of Florida. It is a very rural part of Florida. It's not what people typically think of when they think of Florida. This is a very rural, very agricultural type area. uh, don't really have the hustle and bustle that goes on in South Florida. Uh, Very different part of Florida here that people don't hear too much about, but it's where I was born. It's where I've lived my life, and I do, for the most part, I do enjoy it here. It's a little bit too hot for me at times, but uh, it's good nonetheless. So anyway, Gainesville, current population of Gainesville is 125,000, and the majority of that is University of Florida students. University of Florida was founded here in the 1800s, and it's a very large college. The student body is over 50,000, so that's almost half of the population of the city is just students. So it's a very young city. It's a very vibrant city. It's constantly changing. The music scene is constantly changing. It's a very young music scene. Very closely, I would say, related to Athens, Georgia, where you get bands like REM and stuff like that. Another sort of southern college town. I get this, when I've been to Athens in the past, I get the same sort of vibe that I get here. Feels kind of like home to me. So that sort of scene, a lot of interesting things happening. I'm not as involved in the local music scene as I really should be. I work nights, so it's really hard for me to get out and go to a show. So I just don't get the chance to see a lot of local bands that much. But I'd like to sort of give you a history of some of the musical things that have happened in Gainesville um, in the past. So we're gonna start our journey back in 1947, uh, when a man by the name of Don Felder was born right here in Gainesville, Florida. And Don was as a boy, he was very inspired by what he saw on things like the Ed Sullivan Show. He bought his first guitar at 10 years old and self-taught, learned how to play. He went to Gainesville High School, which is the main high school here in town. And he played in a band called the Continentals at Gainesville High School. And the Continentals also featured somebody by the name of Stephen Stills, who also happened to be living in Gainesville at the time and going to Gainesville High School along with Don Felder. Of course, Stephen Stills would go on to do many other great things, as well as Don Felder himself would go on to do other things like Hotel California, other things such as that. Also, at the time, while going to Gainesville High School, Don Felder taught a person by the name of Tom Petty, taught him a few things on the guitar while they were all going to Gainesville High School. Tom Petty had his own band that he formed in 1970 called Mudcrutch, which is a local Gainesville band. Here is their 2008 reunion CD. Southern rock, but not country. Sort of a good sort of picture of Gainesville in that way. They did host a lot of sort of festivals, and this was around the late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot of hippies, and baby boomers were coming of age. There was a lot of love fest and just people gathering together to play music, listen to music, have fun, enjoy each other's company. And so there was a lot of that going on here, as a lot of students here, and they was a very vibrant music scene. So moving on, we're going to move on into the 80s. The 80s brought on sort of the punk years. Gainesville sort of participated in that as well. Gainesville is home to No Idea Records, which is very much a punk label. Lots of well-known punk bands on No Idea Records. Gainesville is still to this day mostly a punk city. It's most of the bands here in Gainesville are punk bands. They punk, hardcore, ska. Ska plays very heavily in Gainesville. We can talk about a very popular ska band that hails from here. This is Less Than Jake. Very well-known band from Gainesville, Florida. Ska band, ska punk band. Probably one of the best known from Gainesville. So that was sort of what went on in the 80s, sort of a changing period, changing from sort of the country rock, the roots kind of stuff. Moving on, and then into the 90s, we saw the rise of the sort of alternative rock groups. One of the most well-known from here in Gainesville is Sister Hazel, which did the song All For You. A little bit of a hit for them. And Sister Hazel was a person here in Gainesville who would had a homeless kitchen, would open up a soup kitchen and feed the homeless. And so the band really appreciated her as a person and named their band after her. Around that same time, late 80s, early 90s, another Gainesville celebrity was prominent in the music scene here in Gainesville, Florida. That was River Phoenix. He started the Hardback Cafe, which was sort of a cafe-type place where live music was performed. He had his own band here that he would play in with his sister. So they featured heavily in the music scene, along with sort of in the mid 90s, the rave scene sort of took hold really big here. Ended up being a lot of problems with drugs and whatnot, so that ended up in the closures of a lot of clubs and stuff, and a lot of sort of different things like that. The rave became really heavily here. I was too young to really attend, but I was, early teens at the time, so I heard a lot about it. Before we go too much further, I should not go on without mentioning that somebody spent the last part of his life here in Gainesville, and that is Bo Diddley. Moved here in the 80s at some point, mid 80s, and continued to live in this area. Played live concerts right here, a couple blocks from where I am right now at the downtown plaza, which is now named after him. But Bo Diddley figures prominently into Gainesville music, I would say. I think he appreciated the music scene here, and the things that he helped start, were sort of being continued on here with the different forms of rock and roll. Didn't want to go on without mentioning Bo Diddley, at least briefly, as part of Gainesville music culture. So moving on, I want to talk about two current Gainesville bands that I really enjoy, and I thought I would just briefly talk about them. The first band I want to talk about is 100 Waters. 100 Waters are an indie rock, sort of folk rock. They do some electronic, very, very much sort of pulling from different things in Gainesville. There's that folky vibe, there's the young sort of electronic vibe, indie rock vibe. There's everything here except the punk part of Gainesville. And this is their debut album, just self-titled, 100 Waters. There's the poster from the band's album release party. Happened last year at the High Dive. And the final band I want to talk about from Gainesville, current Gainesville band. This is a band I've been following for the past only probably 6 years now. They've been together since 2000. and this is their most recent album, just released this month. This is by the band. The band's name is Morningbell, and this is their album Noite. Note. And Morningbell are a psychedelic band, but not, not heavy psych. It's sort of a pop psych kind of thing. Their albums are very different. You never really know what you're gonna get. This one has almost a I get almost a Moody Blues sort of vibe from this one. It has sort of a Moody Blues, almost like a Days of Future Past sort of feel to this one. Very different from their last one, but still wonderful. It's on white vinyl. So yeah, Morningbell, probably my favorite Gainesville band at the moment. Definitely really good. Check them out. I will try to put some links to some of the bands that I've talked about in the description below, so you can check them out. I definitely recommend you check out Morningbell. I think there's a video up for the first single from this album you can check out, and I'll put that up for you. But yeah, that's a little bit of the Gainesville music scene as I see it. As I said, it's a very heavily punk, sort of hard rock sort of scene here still to this day, and those are just sort of genres that I don't really find interest me at all. So it can be difficult for me to discover new bands, but I'm slowly venturing out and exploring and learning about Gainesville bands, and I'm finding things that I like that aren't punk or hardcore. So that's really good. So I hope you enjoyed this little journey into the Gainesville, Florida music scene. Very, very interesting place to live. I've been interested in seeing other people's sort of music scenes and what goes on where they live. It's always interesting to see that. So thank you for this little journey into Gainesville, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.